So if we are going to these meetings, observing how these individuals are performing, and if we are dissatisfied with their performance, if we've heard criticism of the individuals involved, and believe that they are not acting appropriately or professionally or in the best interest of the town, we would sit here at the organizational meeting and decline to reappoint them, which would then open up a position on the board, which we would then have interested members of the community come forward, present their resumes, interview them, and then appoint someone. So right now, we have the power to make a vacancy. And right now, it is my opinion that David Rush is someone that I want to keep on the board. If Councilman Yee or Supervisor Wrights or Council members Gross and Cullen believe that David Rush is not performing well, or that they want some kind of new member on the board, they can decline to reappoint them. At that point, then the opening would exist. I believe that that is, other than a person on a board stepping down, or God forbid something happening to them that they can no longer perform, then that's the way the opening would be available.
Well, as I understand it, other communities advertise these positions and seek
when they're
community
open.
participation. And seek community participation actively, rather than just have a closed club and it's always the same every year.
I would ask.
Right, and in the interest of open government, you know, an opening may occur sometime in August and people just don't follow it. However, each January, we have what's called the organizational meeting, as we do this evening. Then members of the community will be well aware that on January, the first meeting, the organizational meeting, they would have an opportunity to step forward and present the resume, and that would be the opening time when they can bring it in, as opposed to just spread.
Then I would encourage them to do so.
You're interrupting me again.
No one interrupted you.
So instead of having sporadic openings here and there, at least we have an open opportunity for the community, as far as open government, to come in and say, okay, XYZ appointments are now available. Please submit your resume. The town board will consider it. That's all I'm asking. Makes sense?
Sure. This is just business as usual, you know, another instance of business as usual.
No, it's not business as usual. What it is that you are now suggesting something which you should have suggested some time ago in preparation of the organizational meeting. Then resumes could have been circulated, or interest. If we declined a certain position or declined by motion to reappoint someone, then we would have already had an opportunity to interview new individuals for that position.
Right.
So perhaps this is something that could have been brought up at a work session prefatory to the organizational meeting, and we could have considered it. Since it's now coming up, then all I can suggest to everyone out there is it certainly makes sense for next year, for the organizational meeting prior to it, that we receive resumes and do that which is being suggested should there be a declination of existing appointments.
We received one, and you're overlooking it tonight. The applicant's here.
No, I'm not overlooking it. What I am doing is simply stating that this is, right now, I am not, at least I personally do not believe that I will be voting for the individuals who are noted as being reappointed. And I'll give you all a sneak peek of that. That being known, next year, next year, and please remember this, everyone, you can have your resumes submitted or anything else that you would like submitted, bring it to our attention, and should we be anticipating that there is an opening or that we're going to not reappoint someone, then that would be the best time for us to consider interviews.
Right. If
This
I could
resume
just,
was, go ahead, Bob.
and the voting meeting on December 9th, the town clerk put down a bunch of these appointments, and you and I think Dwight asked to put that off till the January meeting because you wanted time to interview people or whatever. But the board agreed to that. So between December 9th and today, you guys had the opportunity to solicit interviews or meet these people or interview them, and I don't know if you did it or not, but...
Yes, we have someone here tonight.
Yeah, exactly, because if you look in your folder, there is a
Right,
resume.
but this came in at the last minute. I mean, the
No,
problem
it
is...
came in from the time you mentioned, Mr. Cullen, to when we said we should hold off on these appointments back in November.
December
Give
9th.
people, December, and give people opportunity. So within a few weeks' time, someone has listened and heard and submitted and is requesting to be a member of one of our boards. I think what we're doing is missing the point. The point is, we need to have this open government to allow people to participate in our committees here, and it just seems not to be happening. It just seems to be a blind business as usual, same people all the time. I have nothing against these people, but I want it open for the rest of the community to be involved in this.
Well, like I said, if this was something discussed December 9th, and if this resume came earlier, maybe it'd be something we could consider, but the problem is now,
You're not
you
gonna
know, there's
consider it.
planning board meetings coming up, and they need to have a quorum, and, you know, I think
Well,
it's...
I think we're missing the whole point. The whole point is to allow the community a voice onto these boards, and that's not what's happening here. Because if I look at the Tenetta Lake Advisory Board, everyone serves admirably. However, each of them are up for reappointment and/or, if you want to call it, a reelection. And if there was someone along like Tenetta who wanted to get onto this board, they don't have that opportunity. So, and these appointments are for a few years, you know. Same thing with the Open Space Committee. Each member, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people are up for reappointments, and I don't know if anyone else is interested, but we never advertised it out. So that's what we need to consider for the community.
It's a shame that this doesn't come up at work sessions.
It did
and
come up,
comes
Ms. Hudak.
And it doesn't, no, it doesn't come up about planning board, zoning board, et cetera.
Okay, so we'll just do business as usual.
No, it's not business as usual. As Bob said, this was discussed in December. The resume we have is dated December 30th, which is basically New Year's Eve. Okay, and today's January, what, the 8th.
So they're interested in applying for this position.
So we could put them in a file as interested for what is the planning board, and if there's a vacancy, they could be interviewed. But I want to remind everyone that these folks are volunteers, except for the chairman, which is paid a very tiny piece of change. These are volunteers, and they're enthusiastically...
No, Roger, these are paid positions
Pardon
on the
me?
planning board
Planning board's lowly paid. And zoning.
and
But
zoning.
all the
board.
rest are, though, volunteers.
Yeah, most of these
Lake Tenetta,
boards are...
most are
yeah, they're all-
volunteers.
They're volunteers, and I don't want to blunt
Some
their
boards get
enthusiasm.
small
You know, it's nice, it's a lot to get, it takes a lot to get volunteers out today to do things with two earners and a family and so forth. And I appreciate the interest and the support these people have given us over the years.
And the reality is, too, we do have a bunch of boards, which the Southeast IDA, we have 3 vacancies. We have a vacancy on the Historic Sites Committee. We had the chairwoman, Kathleen Abels, who served very ably for a long time.
Kathleen resigned.
Right, she resigned, that's what I was trying to say. And we have an opening now on that board. So there are a lot of boards that people can, you know, apply for, where we have openings. But, you know, I don't see, if somebody is serving well, you know, and like I said, I personally reached out on my own with the chairman to see if these people that need to be appointed for, or, you know, good members, and, you know, just to kick somebody off who's serving well, I wouldn't agree with that either. Just
We're
because-
not kicking anyone off. We're just opening up the committees for the community to realize in January to please submit resumes if you're interested. We're not kicking anyone off. All these people are volunteers. They serve very well here. I just want to open it up to the rest of the community as opposed to being a locked committee.
Yeah, and Bob, just to refresh your recollection, well, Mr. Dowdy's doing a good job on the ARB, but the prior chairman, Mr. Frasco, was rather harshly treated by a majority of this board.
Well, I think there were some issues that were brought to the board's attention that we felt that there was a change required.
Yeah, he's still on the
And
ARB.
he's still on the AOB, it was just the chairman position that was...
However, how he was taken out of his seat was questionable.
Yeah, and those issues were specious. That was witch hunt.
Right.
Well, all I know at this point is, once again, there's hands up in the audience. I don't know if the supervisor's going to accept any public comment. I know one of the hands that are up happens to be one of the people we are going to be voting on to reappoint.
As
So
we always
Right,
let
you're out of
everyone
order.
speak.
that's fine. It's just that the hands have been up
Is
for a
there
while.
further discussion?
Well, will there
Then
be
Brad, was that your hand? Brad was first, but he defers. I am. Welcome. Welcome, man. Thanks for joining us tonight.
It opens.
Either one, that one's working, and there's one over here.
Just push it open.
Just push it.
Yep, there you go.
I think you started an interesting discussion, and since I came from the, by the way, my name is Ann Finizzi. I came from the town of Carmel, and not a similar, but I raised an issue, and it was raised in the context of terms and so forth and so on. And I think what people are looking at is the tension between experience and opening up to new people and so forth. So I think this is an interesting discussion, but I don't know whether or not it's, what shall I say, appropriate within this particular within this particular agenda. But I would like to open up the whole issue of term limits. I really would. And not tonight, though, but open it up for, discussion from perhaps, from henceforth. And that would be term limits up and down. And I sort of opened up that discussion at the town of Carmel last night, and I opened it up again to this particular board. I think that has to be looked at seriously, but at another time. This is, I guess, it's an organizational meeting. So I put it forward for a discussion, maybe at a work session, maybe with groups of citizens, establish a committee. There are all kinds of ways. I'm personally in favor of term limits up and down the line, even though I may be term limited or whatever. But I think that there's much to be said, but there is also much to be said on the other side. And I think that citizens and public officials, we should discuss it, but again, at another time. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. That's an excellent point. Bradley?
Good evening. I just wanted to point out that I believe all of these meetings, these boards hold meetings that are open to the public. So anyone who's a citizen can come to the meetings and participate, observe what's going on. And if they are dissatisfied with what they see, they could petition the board to get on the next year. And that's the board's option, to not renew the appointment of a person who's on the board and to appoint that person who's interested. And I think that just as a recognition of people who are serving voluntarily or for a small stipend, I think it's appropriate to reappoint these people. I mean, you wouldn't consider not appointing or terminating the employment of a regular town employee if someone else wanted to be a highway truck operator or a bookkeeper or a tax collector or any of those positions. Those people have continuous employment unless they resign or their performance is unsatisfactory. And I think it's not inappropriate to do the same thing here. Thank you.
Good point. Thanks, Bradley.
And like I said, there are a bunch of boards where, we do need people, where there are vacancies, and, I support if you want to take an ad. I mean, the Southeast IDA, we've been looking for 3 or 4 people for quite some time. And the Historic Sites Committee, we're looking for people. So, I support that. But, to get rid of qualified people who are serving that committee, their community for very little money or a small stipend or for no money, I mean, just because someone else wants to, moved into town and wants to get on a board, I mean, I don't think that's right either. And
Well, there's something to be said for fresh blood and new ideas once in a while, too. As Ann noted, that's the driving impetus behind the idea for term limits. The business as usual here and business as usual in other communities doesn't always serve the community.
And how best to get experience then? How do you get aboard and come in as a new person? If you have the same old ideas all the time, then that's what you're going to get, the same old ideas. Sometimes it's good to have fresh new ideas and bring new people into these boards one at a time, or however you wish to do it. But the point I'm trying to make is to advise the community once again, to allow them the opportunity to submit resumes during our organizational meeting, and for us to consider those instead of just continually, year after year, reappoint without opening up that
I would just,
Thank you, Ms. Hudak.
I would just like to ask the supervisor if he could identify the other communities that at organizational meetings or at any time period drop members on boards and put new people in. I would just like him to identify those communities.
Well, Liz, my earlier